Welcome to Clarity, a podcast powered by the Thomson Reuters Institute. I'm Zach Warren, the Institute's Technology and Innovation Insights lead. In each episode, we dive deep into a single question from decision makers and thought leaders from legal, corporate, tax accounting and audit, and government communities. In today's episode, we discuss the big question: how are business leaders transforming their organizations and client relationships through strategic AI adoption? At this point, almost 3 years out from the public release of ChatGPT, most people in the corporate and professional services world have an idea about what generative AI is. According to TRI's recently released Future of Professionals report, 96% of professionals have an awareness of AI's capabilities. But at an organizational level, awareness and initial adoption is where many stop, not taking the next step to determine what AI means to their business. And that could be to their detriment, as the report found that just 22% of respondents' organizations had a visible AI strategy. But those that did were 3.5 times more likely to have positive ROI from artificial intelligence. So, how can professionals move from AI awareness to action? Today, Mike Abbott, head of the Thomson Reuters Institute, reviews the Future of Professionals report and more, with 3 Thomson Reuters business leaders charting the future of professional services: Elizabeth Beastrom, president of Tax and Accounting Professionals; Clayton McDonald, president of Corporates; and Raghu Ramanathan, president of Legal Professionals. Take it away, Mike.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mike Abbott with the Thomson Reuters Institute, and I want to welcome you to this week's episode of Clarity, a podcast from the Thomson Reuters Institute. Today, I'm very fortunate to have 3 senior leaders from Thomson Reuters joining us for the conversation. Raghu Ramanathan is the president of a legal professionals business, Clayton McDonald, president of Corporates, and Elizabeth Beastrom, president of Tax and Accounting Professionals. Thank you all for being here and for joining us. Today we're going to be talking about how business leaders are transforming both their organizations and their client relationships through strategic AI implementation and adoption. That conversation will be based in several sets of insights from our most recent Future Professionals report that was released earlier this summer. So again, thank you for joining us. Welcome. And let's get things started. I'd like to start with kind of big picture. And Elizabeth, if it's okay, I'll start with you. There's a lot swirling in the industry right now. There's just lots and lots of things happening. And I think you had said it, called it a perfect storm in the tax, accounting, and audit space. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, it is a perfect storm. And, the industry has had a continued talent shortage, and there's a demographic shift underway. We have a generation of CPAs retiring, and there just aren't enough new professionals coming into that pipeline to replace them. And this is happening at a time when there is no shortage of work. The industry has still a lot of complexity and increasingly complex with all the tax codes and changes in that. Secondly, there's some structural changes happening in the industry, and it's a really attractive industry for PE firms. Why is it attractive? Because accounting and tax firms have steady recurring revenue streams that are ripe for consolidation. And with the PE investment, these firms, it allows them to compete at a different level, get more scale, growth, and efficiency. And then last, tech and automation has always been important to the industry, but it's supercharged by AI right now. It's fundamentally transforming how firms operate. We're seeing 79% of professionals telling us they have a high or transformational impact within the next 5 years in their firms. And professionals recognize that AI offers a possibility to tackle these challenges: the complexity, the regulation, and the talent shortages.
I think, going back to the first report that we released almost 3 years ago, one of the big surprises to me, and I know to others as well, was just how enthusiastic the tax and accounting industry was about the potential that AI has on the profession. So very, very interesting. Laura, I want to jump over to you if that's okay. Your engagement with the corporate's customers really covers a lot of ground within those organizations. You're seeing corporate leaders grapple with AI transformation across the entire enterprise. What's driving this urgency among the C-suite there?
Yeah, what's really interesting is that there's a significant shift that's happening. And C-suite executives are looking at AI and recognizing that it's not just for operational efficiency, but it's absolutely fundamental to gaining a competitive advantage in today's market. There's immense pressure on corporate leaders. They got to demonstrate how various functions, particularly enabling ones like legal, tax, compliance, that how they're all contributing strategically to the value of the business, moving beyond just managing costs. And this urgency is also driven by the understanding that companies are navigating unprecedented regulatory and geopolitical complexity, which really underscores the need for AI systems that can operate with professional grade accuracy at this critical intersection of commerce and compliance. What we see as the most successful transformations, they're happening when organizations adopt the end-to-end approach. They start at the top and they allow AI strategies to cascade directly from overarching enterprise goals down into the functional implementation, rather than just isolated projects.
I think, and I assume, well, actually, I'm going to come back to this a little bit later on with you, but I would assume there's some inconsistency and about, with sort of implementation and adoption across, just given the scale of the size of the organizations. But I want to touch on that a little bit later with you. Raghu, from a law firm perspective, what you hear and what you see among the corporate side with their prioritization of AI and how quickly they're jumping on board, or how quickly they have jumped on board. What is that doing, or is it doing anything to the law firm client dynamics?
Yeah, it's really, really interesting, Mike. What a survey highlights is that 54% of corporate legal departments are now investing in AI versus just 45% for law firms, right? Meaning law firms are actually behind their clients. And this creates some really, really interesting dynamic, right? I think there's a lot more pressure on law firms now to show that they are technologically sophisticated, otherwise they're less relevant. And also there's an expectation from in-house legal counsel towards the law firms to say, how are you changing your services in order to match the progression of technology, because otherwise I can do it myself, right? So clearly lots of interesting dimensions. The one thing I want to highlight is it is not necessarily an adversarial relationship. I've seen lots of examples of in-house legal counsel reaching out to their favored law firms saying, can you help me transform? Can you also be a coach in terms of how I deploy technology in-house, right? This is an opportunity for law firms to build transformational relationships with their customers. Also because several in-house legal counsel, right, their respective multinational companies may be ahead in AI, but let's be honest, law firms are the last use cases that these big corporates think about, right? They want to focus on supply chain, the revenue side, right? And that's why there's a unique opportunity for law firms to partner with in-house legal counsel to say, look, we'll help you out as well.
I think it's interesting to me, and I said this for a while post-pandemic, but I think they're similar in that I feel like both the pandemic, hideous as that was, right, but it brought law firms and their clients together because everybody's navigating the same uncertainty at the same time. And I feel like this is somewhat similar, at least. Everybody's on their own trajectory here, but the similarities are there, I think. Laura, back to you. Whenever you're talking with the C-suite among the corporates customers of yours, what have you seen as being the biggest mindset change among them?
Yeah, this is just a terrific question, because I see this biggest mindset shift is moving from viewing the functions as cost centers to recognizing them as strategic valued partners, business partners that can really that can use AI, that will truly empower their ability to achieve the goals. And it's a mindset shift that's not just with the enabling functions, but it's with the C-suite itself. So it's all parts of the organization now looking at how you each can create value, and AI becomes a tool to do that. So it's a powerful accelerator when you think about AI. You can achieve your commerce goals. You can make sure that you maintain stringent compliance. It's not just a trade-off anymore. So I think that's the other part of the mind shift that's occurring. there's a growing understanding that's out there that when you're looking at it for a competitive advantage, it really hinges on how quickly an organization can adapt and scale its capabilities. And AI is an accelerant, and it's key to that type of agility. Ultimately, the C-suite is looking at the necessity of how they empower, I should say, the functions with advanced technology, and to drive a holistic view of the enterprise's success. It includes things like, how do we generate new business, new revenue? How do we drive operational efficiency? How do we execute on digital transformation? And for that matter, the bottom line is, how do we improve customer loyalty?
Raghu, I want to stick with this kind of law firm client slash corporate topic for one more second. One of the things that is constantly discussed is the billable hour, right? And is this going to be the catalyst that finally kind of changes that entire model? And this is a generalization and probably an unfair one for the most part. But there are still at least individuals who are either outwardly saying or inwardly thinking that for every hour saved with AI or some other technology, that's an hour that's not being billed. Assuming that is still happening, and it is to some degree, right? How do you respond to that?
Yeah, so the first point that I would make is what came out in our survey is that on an average, each lawyer expects to save 240 hours of time every year with AI, right? And if you multiply by the number of lawyers and the rates in the US, just in the US, that's about $20 billion worth of work, right? That's a reality, right? That's going to happen. You can either ignore it or you can say, I accept it, right? Because that's going to happen. Now, the second question is, okay, if that's going to happen, what does it do to my billing rates, my economics, right? I think that's a fair question, right? My view, I'm not saying necessarily right, but it's at least my hypothesis how things are going to evolve is two things. So one is that $20 billion worth of time that you're saving is going to be reinvested. It's going to be redirected towards higher value work, towards client service and firm growth, right? I think firms which embrace this mindset are going to be seeing a substantial increase in their demand and higher work rates. It's just a different way to express your value. The second theory that I have, Mike, is when the work that you're doing today can be done at a lower price point, the basics of economic theory kicks in, right? Demand is going to go up, right? All the in-house legal counsel and lots of the law firm customers I speak with are happy to give more work to the law firms if the economics are more attractive, right? So I'm a big believer in the theory of demand expansion, which will more than compensate for the horse that you lose, and this industry will continue to grow.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, thinking about it otherwise is a bit short-sighted. I'm going to shift gears for a second here and talk about kind of the human side of all of this. And, each of the three reports that we've released over the past 3 years has told us that, AI is only as good as the people that are using it, right? So, Elizabeth, I'm going to start with you, but how important is that human element as it relates to the whole story within tax and accounting firms?
Yeah, Mike, I mean, it is so important. And I have to tell you, I underestimated how quickly the profession would lean in and embrace and want to understand AI and how it could advance their firms. It is absolutely human led and critical. And a few things to support that. It's going to be people who drive the AI success. Technology is just a tool that we're going to be continue to use to help us automate. And the strategic value comes from professionals who can critically assess their AI outputs and apply judgment. Judgment is not going away anytime soon. It's going to be critical. It's also really important from an upskilling standpoint. 53% of respondents in tax, audit, and accounting firms identify that there's skill gaps and that they're going to need ongoing training in technology, data literacy, and critical thinking. And one of the most important things I talk to clients a lot about is building the AI culture, getting it ready. It starts at the top. The success requires professionals who understand both AI capabilities and its limitations and are encouraged to experiment safely.
Yeah, Mike, you probably, and many of you have probably seen the recent MIT study, which I looked at with fascination, right? So they studied the brain activity of different groups of people who use ChatGPT to draft something and write an essay, and those who don't. And interestingly, much to the surprise of all of us, the conclusion was that people who leverage ChatGPT as a crutch, their brain activity was actually much more limited, right? So the worry is that the people using ChatGPTs, whether it's lawyers or tax and accountant professionals, right, become like a massive industrial factory, right, where ChatGPT is now the machine that you're operating. And therefore, more than ever, I think it's important to reinforce that critical thinking is non-negotiable, right? This is just an opportunity for lawyers or tax professionals to rise up over the AI outputs and help their customers with the real problems and challenges that they're facing, right? And to apply their critical thinking. The other thing that I want to emphasize as well is law firms, especially, right? Lawyers have a professional responsibility and liability considerations. There is a professional responsibility to validate each and every work that's developed with AI, and that needs to be taken seriously as well. And that's the role of the individuals, and we need to reinforce that role of the individuals because AI is an assistant; it's not a replacement for lawyers.
That's a good way of putting it. Laura, I'm going to turn over to you. Not the same question, but I want to touch on the adoption and implementation side of things and getting back to the kind of said there might be some inconsistencies with the way it's deployed across an organization. What do you see are the biggest barriers at the organizational level for corporates?
Yeah, this is a terrific question. The first one that I can think about is strategy alignment. So everybody recognizes that AI has a high impact, and our research, though, shows that there's a disconnect because there's a lot of corporate functions that still lack specific AI strategies. And so that really makes it hard to link their efforts to the broader enterprise goals. So there still remains for us to contend with is organizational silos. They are a significant challenge. And when functions implement AI in isolation without a unified enterprise strategy, they're going to miss out. They're going to miss out on the full potential of AI to break down those internal barriers. The next one I would say is that you need the commitment from the leaders. It is crucial. We need the C-suite champions who truly understand AI's strategic value beyond simple cost reduction. And they're fostering a culture where it's seen as a growth engine. It really is about the people sort of driving this forward. I think the last one that I would say is that if you want to have a successful AI transformation, you got to think beyond the technology. It really demands substantial cultural change management. And that's worth sort of repeating here, right? I mean, it's about the culture, and you've got to ensure that there's broad adoption. It's being integrated into daily workflows. So those would be some of the barriers that I would see to adoption.
Yeah, for sure. And Elizabeth, I'm going to turn over to you, but clearly it kind of runs the gamut in terms of people's comfort level. And again, all 3 years of this report, we're seeing progress for sure, but there's still some people that are kind of unsure about it. One thing that is crystal clear, though, this is not the time nor the environment to bury your head in the sand and say, if I ignore this long enough, it's going to go away. Like maybe it's happened in the past with some certain trends. But what would you say is your advice? What advice have you given or would you give to a firm leader who knows it's time to adopt, but is overwhelmed by the whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, it is easy to be overwhelmed with this. And, I would say find a way to act fast, learn fast. And, accounting tax firms, they love to be able to quantify things. And I can tell you, come up with a strategy, have a strategic approach to this. And both tax, audit, and accounting firms and law firms with visible AI strategies are more than 3 times likely to see an ROI on it. So take a strategic approach to it. Start small. You don't have to boil the ocean. Setting an AI strategy doesn't mean you need to do everything at once. focus on some pain points. AI is not intended to solve every problem, but start by identifying an objective that addresses a main pain point that you're going through right now. Pilot strategically. Choose high impact use cases that demonstrate clear value. And a couple quotes to kind of sum this up. Don't let perfection be the enemy of good, or progress, not perfection. The key with this all is to learn, iterate, and make continual improvements.
How do you see the relationship between corporate strategy and functional AI adoption evolving within corporates?
So I think there's going to be a rapid acceleration. I truly believe that. You're going to see much tighter alignment. I think folks will be looking at developing out an AI-powered operating system for enterprise knowledge work. I think that's going to be absolutely key. And that's going to support an end-to-end workflow, and it's going to help to break down the silos across functions like legal, tax, and trade, and risk and compliance. I think the next thing that we're going to see is that, how you measure value. That will evolve significantly. I think success metrics are going to shift away from just focused on purely cost reduction, and I think they're going to focus more on how AI contributes strategic value creation, how it enhances your foresight, how it helps you be more proactive in your decision making, how you navigate complexity with a higher level of confidence. And there also is going to be a separation, I think, among competitors out there. I think organizations that are proactive, they build, they implement sophisticated AI strategies, they're going to significantly outperform those with an ad hoc or a siloed approach, especially when you think about how they need to satisfy compliance obligations but still accomplish their commerce goals. And then regarding talent, top professionals are going to go towards those organizations that are demonstrating, advanced AI strategies and tools. So people will select it based on how that organization shows up in developing out their AI strategy. Why? Because it's going to empower them to do higher value, more strategic work, rather than just automating mundane tasks.
Completely agree. Raghu, when you look at the categories of law firms that are out there, from innovators to laggards, everything in between, does this create opportunities for certain firms? Like, just as one example, does it create an opportunity for smaller firms to leverage technology to punch above their weight a bit? How do you see that?
Yeah, Mike, this is a really, really interesting question, and my position has probably shifted over time, right? Initially, I thought large firms will have a greater scale, ability to invest in AI, maybe use this as an opportunity to gain market share. But increasingly, I'm viewing this as an opportunity for smaller law firms to catch up. The main reason is because AI is available on the tap, so to say, right? This is all modern technologies available on subscription, right? Every lawyer can get it. You don't need to invest significantly. So this is kind of evening things out. And what we're also finding, and this might be interesting for you, right? So we take our statistics seriously in terms of how many lawyers licensed our products, how many are using it. And what we are finding is our level of usage among small law firms, right, is even more intense and higher than in larger law firms. And this shows the value and the opportunity for several law firms to use AI to kind of even up the game, right? So again, I'm not going to make longer term predictions. Consolidation might still happen over time, but at least in the next 6 to 12 months, what I see is that smaller law firms definitely can use AI to differentiate themselves.
Great. Elizabeth, how would you characterize the near-term outlook for tax, audit, and accounting firms?
Yeah, I think in the near term, we're going to see the industry split into two distinct camps, AI leaders and laggards. I mentioned earlier that 79% of professionals believe AI is going to have a transformational impact on the industry. Despite that, 14% actually only have AI strategies in place. So I get concerned for the laggards in this. The gap is going to increase dramatically, making it even more difficult for them to attract and retain talent. The best professionals want to work with cutting-edge tools and efficient processes. not outdated systems. So what's this mean for the firms that have already adopting and are the AI leaders? They're already seeing a significant ROI on that investment, with 54% of the firms reporting a positive ROI. What does this mean practically? They're freeing up significant time from routine tasks, which allows them to handle greater client volumes while simultaneously moving into higher value advisory work. This creates a virtuous cycle: better margins, more interesting work, and the ability to attract the industry's best talent. Most importantly, they're finally achieving that elusive work-life balance that has plagued our profession for decades.
That's great. I'm hearing two things loud and clear from all three of you. One is that it's more than technology. It's about strategic transformation. Organizations who act now with clear strategies, when they invest in their talent and their people and focus on measurable outcomes, will separate themselves from the competitors. That's number one. And number two, that gap between leaders and laggards is widening. The evidence is overwhelming that embracing AI strategically, it's not just an opportunity, it's an imperative for competitive survival. So Raghu, Laura, Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining us today, for sharing your insights. It's been great to have you with us. And thank you all for tuning in and listening today. If you haven't had a chance to do so already, please visit the Future Professional site. There's a tremendous number of resources on there to help you navigate a landscape that's literally changing by the hour. So please do. And again, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you, Elizabeth, Laura, Raghu, and Mike for your insights. And I'll echo what Mike said because it's true. The gulf is only widening between the AI haves and have-nots. All of TRI's data suggests that the time for simply experimenting with AI is rapidly fading into the rear view. The organizations that will be successful in the future are the ones not only adopting AI, but integrating its benefits into the overall strategy of the corporate department or firm. It is clearly time to make the business case. Thank you as always for joining us for Clarity, powered by the Thomson Reuters Institute. You can follow or subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform, and don't forget to share with your colleagues and leave a 5-star review. For more data-driven analysis of today's professional services market and in-depth conversations with industry thought leaders, please visit us online at thomsonreuters.com/institute and follow us on LinkedIn under the Thomson Reuters Institute. Clarity is a production of Thomson Reuters, copyright Thomson Reuters 2025.